Hi there guys, this is my second video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's been a couple of weeks, so I thought I'd do one just before the end of the month as it's nearing the end of Autism Awareness Month. In my last video, I said I would give you a much more in-depth overview about my journey, but on this video I'm just going to tell you about my journey prior to when I went to university. So here goes nothing. Basically, I was diagnosed at the age of 3, as I mentioned to you in the previous video. And since my educational journey started, I was in the special needs unit attached to a mainstream school. So I never really had that much first-hand experience doing mainstream full-time. So that kind of made me extra vulnerable to the hard-learned skills that I could have learned before I went to uni, as I was surrounded by so many people with much more high support needs. So that made me stand out in, I suppose, in a good way. But later on in life, I realised how different I really was in that. So I kind of made a massive exaggeration, as it were, to try and be like everybody else within my peer group, let alone my disability group or anything similar to that. And that became quite a frustration to those who dealt with me, and that kind of led to me regressing quite a bit with my social development and my cognitive development and all that sort of stuff. And that kind of led to much worse problems, which led to me going to boarding school, where I boarded in 3 separate places over a nearly 10-year period. And that was literally just before I started my journey into higher education. So my boarding school journey started when I was about 12 years of age. Well, I just turned 12 at the time. It was just over 20 years ago. And although it was for my benefit, I really hated the way it all happened and everything like that, because I had a place already set in stone after I left primary school to go to a special needs local school, which kind of fell through at the last minute. I only just came back from holiday with my dad on the last week of the summer holidays of 1999. And the minute I got back, that's when I realised that Mum had to pull me out and everything like that. So I was out of school for about 4 months, which I thought personally was quite a cowardly way of pulling me out somewhere which I already had a place at, rather than me continuing on winging it, as it were, before a place was already confirmed elsewhere. And that was when I could have made my own little journey. But one of the things that I actually regretted before going to boarding school was because I didn't have that much understanding about sexual slang or any social cues that people with autism and Asperger's syndrome would struggle to contend with, such as concepts of sarcasm and different ways of understanding certain language techniques and all that sort of stuff. So the way it affects me is the way I think, in terms of how concrete my thought patterns are. There might be some terms or phrases which may have double meanings to, or more than one meaning. So it can't just be double meaning. It could be 3 meanings, 4 meanings, looking up different terms which I don't particularly understand, and it comes up with so many different meanings. So it's quite difficult to actually use the term in reflection of that particular definition. Okay? So I had to learn the hard way, very much so. I didn't feel as though I was supported in that sort of way, because I was kind of placed in some kind of nest with people who had similar problems to me and the way it affected them and all the rest of it. But I realised that it kind of made things a lot worse and made me more vulnerable to bullying, based on the way I was treated, based on the way I was behaving around those people who were struggling as much as I was. But that's just a part of why my drive and my determination to do as well as I can in society as a whole. And it hasn't been easy, I can assure you of that. So the more people doubted that I would be able to make it to this particular milestone in my life, the more determined and driven I became to achieve my full potential and to achieve that sort of goal that I set myself for, and not let anyone get in the way of making a liberal decision to say, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. We think this place is right for you. We want to know what's best for you. This is for your own good. All these understatements, which possibly had no meaning whatsoever, because the chances are that nobody's going to listen to all those words of wisdom. And for those in the same position as me, who had that strength to ignore that sort of advice, have succeeded greatly, and I find that quite astonishing. So I spent 5.5 years in secondary school, boarding, and although I did quite well, having reached a stage where I was taking GCSE exams, I didn't get 5 Cs. I can totally admit that to you as well. But when I went into further education, I kind of made up for that until I was about 21. And I went to 2 special needs colleges, both of whom had links to mainstream colleges, which was a real benefit for me. So I spent 4 years in all doing full-time courses, doing BTECs, MVQs or what have you. And I managed to achieve great results. And due to my determination and hard work, which I dedicated 80% of my time doing the best I possibly can to prove a lot of people wrong, thinking I can't do it, when in actual fact I can do it and can achieve to the maximum potential that there is possible. So I spent 2 years at Bournemouth Poole College, and after my first year I achieved the Best Student Award on the course that I actually applied for when I was still at school at the age of 17. And it has been one of my greatest accomplishments to date, And this is something that will come with me to wherever I decide to go to within my journey for the rest of my life. So I'm never going to throw that away. I'm never going to let anyone undermine that achievement. I know there's been a few people that may have undermined whatever achievement, which a lot of people have taken for granted with other people. So there you go. And when I was in my last year at Bournemouth Poole College, I had to face the transition of going to another special needs college, which obviously didn't work out, although I saw it through to the very end of those 2 years, from 2007 to 2009. I didn't feel my time there was as enjoyable as my first 2 years, and simply because I felt the presence of support workers from that special needs college supporting other people with higher support needs, and based on the way I was treated, where I may have behaved inappropriately, which could be ignored by quite a lot of people. And although I was aware that there may be people who may not understand your behaviour and will start taking the mick out of you, start judging you, jumping on the bandwagon with their mates, would create thousands more problems and would therefore trigger more challenging behaviour, because I didn't have things the way I wanted everything to pan out, as it were. So once I left there, I felt so relieved that I didn't have to put up with any of these compromises and all these other options, which I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable with facing anyway. Because the more I'm in those sort of places, with the support that I had in place with me and the way I was supported, if that had been prolonged, it would have made matters so much harder to cope with, and basically my behaviour would have spiralled out of control, which I would have been quite oblivious to anyway. So as soon as I left there and when I went to university, and on my first day of the first term in the very first year I was there, I went to the support services to discuss my needs and what I'd written down to get the support that I deserve and need. And it was very fair to say I may have agreed to some of the stuff that they said to me about where I came from in terms of going into specialist units all my life and not actually experiencing mainstream full-time with a bit of support, which is what I would have benefited from personally. They told me that out of the majority of people with autism that they've supported throughout the years, I'm probably the most extreme. And although I found that quite hurtful to hear, that was probably the truth, and I never wanted to think about it. So I spent 4 years at uni, having struggled throughout my studies with the socialising bit as well as getting the high marks and trying to achieve results at the same level as everybody else without an autism spectrum disorder. I felt it has made me become more of a man. It's made me become more well-rounded to life. And basically, I'm quite proud of what I've achieved. So for those who've doubted, I've proved you all wrong. And I'm never going to throw that away. Sorry, this has been a bit of a waffly sort of blog. So I thought I'd give you a more in-depth overview, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. So if you want to find out more about me, or if I want to go into more depth with anything that I've mentioned to you, I could follow it up on another video, and I could make another one focusing specifically on that. So I hope to see you all very, very soon, and I look forward to your comments or any queries that you may have based on what I've discussed today. And hope you have a very good evening. And please remember to follow the government advice to stay at home, protect the NHS, and save more lives during this coronavirus pandemic. Thank you for watching, and see you very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.